Well, we won't call anybody out. Can I call you out?
I don't.
Well,
I'm an open book.
you'll have to. Are you?
Sure.
You don't even know what I'm going to say.
It's all
Okay. So this is what makes a podcast kind of fun.
That was the one and only time.
The one and only time.
One of the first signs that you're headed down a dangerous path.
Welcome to the Faithful Family Podcast, a ministry of hope for the home, supported by listeners like you. I'm Jason.
And I'm Natalie.
You know, Natalie, if there's one topic that continues to come up, it's protecting your family.
And I feel what that looks like today is certainly different than when we grew up.
I would agree. And this is one conversation I'm definitely looking forward to having.
Great. Let's get started.
Hey, Natalie, how are you?
Good.
I'm glad you're here. I've been asking Natalie to do a podcast for probably 5 to 7 years. We would be sitting around in our living room, and we would have these conversations, or late at night, and I would ask Natalie. I was like, "Wow, wish we could have had that recorded or documented
To share it.
That's the sole purpose of it, because I am a counselor, and we do minister out of our home. We minister to different families. For those of you that don't know, we have 11 children, and I have such a heart. We both do, for families, preserving families, and we really believe that the Bible provides the guidelines and the map for successful families. And it doesn't mean every family never has problems. It just, how do you deal with them when they come up? And they come up. We see that. And so we have these conversations a lot, and a lot of times I end up feel like I'm repeating myself. And so if that's something that happens, maybe then if we had a podcast or someplace we could put that information out, that it would share it with other people.
And they can have, access to even our private conversations or things that are repetitive in our counseling sessions. I think that would be really helpful.
Right.
But our youngest is 4, and I really didn't feel like, did I just repeat that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Our youngest is 4, and I really didn't feel like I could or wanted to divide my time between babies and I don't mind investing, but my family, my kids, that really comes first to me. And so even though that would have been fun, I know it takes a lot of work on your part. I just didn't want to look back and regret and think, I really wish I would have held the babies more, but we were so focused and divided our attention into this area. And so I really thought it just, I know I had to push back, but that was one of the big reasons that
you were putting your family first, and it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
And besides,
I don't regret it.
Yeah.
But it's a new year, and I'm ready. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything.
Well, I have prepared you for some of tonight, but
you mean 2 days prepared? Like 2 days ago, he asked
20
me.
years, honey. This is not just.
It's fine.
It's not like you're just coming up with this information.
It's fine. I'm an open book.
Okay, so how was your week this week? What did your week look like this week?
I'm not sure if you have time for everything that's happened this week. We had some new countertops put in, a new sink put in, ripped out some carpet,
ripped out some flooring.
We're on the tail end of remodeling, so it's been really fun to see everything to come together, which I think that probably was another reason why podcast just really wasn't on the top of my list.
Did you remember the van?
Oh yeah, the van broke down. You fixed it. He had an opportunity to fix it, so
yeah, the boys and I went out and fixed it.
Yep. There's a lot going on. There always is a lot going on.
And a birthday.
Oh, we've had 3 birthdays. We had one of our daughters and Jason's birthday, and we had a new grandbaby. So that's been all there's always something going on, and it never slows down. Don't ever let anyone tell you it slows down, because it doesn't.
No, it just, yeah. So one of the main topics that I wanted to bring up tonight, and I thought we could just start with this one. We talk about protection of the home, safety in the home. How do you protect your home? And I think on the surface level, that sounds really banal. It sounds really boring to talk about. But once you really start thinking about how you protect your home, it's one of the key elements that always comes up whenever we talk about families. Because I think you'll see that it's more than just, from the guy's perspective of what that typically looks like as far as protecting your home. So I had asked you if you could make a list of the top things. I don't know how many you had on your list. I had 5.
I'm not really sure. I just jotted them down really quick. I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about it, but those weren't too hard to come up with.
Okay. So would you like to go first? What's one of the things on your list that is
I didn't
protection?
ask you how your week was.
Well, I fixed a van.
You did?
And the boys helped me with that. So anytime you get a chance to do chores and work with your kids, it's always fun because you're teaching and training.
Yeah, and you did a good job with the countertop. So
and that's life.
good.
So yeah,
everybody's excited about the new sink.
Can you imagine if we had to live without a kitchen sink and running water?
Yeah, with all these kids and cooking and
washing the pans.
Well, we have.
We've
done it. We've done it a couple times, and I'm glad to be on the other side of the modeling. So
in a dishwasher.
Yeah, and you're getting ready to put a floor in.
Yeah. So that was my week. Plus work. I work outside the house too. So
chores, animals.
Yeah,
a lot going on. Sorry, I didn't ask you.
That's all right. So in the midst of all that, finding ways to protect your home. What does protection look like for you? Like what's the first thing that comes to you as the female representative here? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I actually wrote them down on paper. Number 1, I said cleanse your home of all the garbage. I'm pretty straightforward, so what you see is what you get with me. I'm not going to mix words. So garbage meaning junk music, junk books. Get rid of anything that is, really not God honoring. That's not going to glorify the Lord in some way or benefit your children with character, or you don't want to introduce things that are going to create an environment that you don't want 20 years from now. So cleansing your home could mean a lot of book burning, throwing out bad movies. I mean, whatever that looks like, but it is important to remember to replace all of that with good. So say you're throwing out a bunch of CDs, or I'm so old.
Some tapes,
some tapes
and records.
Nobody has those anymore, right? But if you're throwing all of those out or burning them or whatever you're doing, you need to replace those with things that are, that are going to be peaceful in your home, and they're going to be honoring.
Yeah, can I add a caveat to that? It's like replace them with you.
Sure, right? Yes.
Replace them with a relationship.
Yeah. And for us, it's also been playing our own music and singing together, and everybody has a hymn book, and that's been really fun. So, and that's not anything I experienced growing up. And so that's a very new thing that we've just implemented in our home that was important to you at first. Mm-hmm. And then I've just kind of went with your vision, and it's just really taken off, and it's just become such a beautiful thing to watch.
It is like it happened overnight too. Like they just,
lots of work, lots of prep work went into it, and then you see overnight that really flourish.
Yeah, you like wake up and your kids are singing in the van, and they're singing harmony, and like I don't know where that came from. I mean, I know they practiced and they love that, and they just hear it. And
a lot of work when they were little.
Yeah, a lot of work when they were little.
Yeah, so it's been really fun watching them grow up and invest in each other and teach the little ones harmony, and now the little ones, it's so easy because all they do is watch the older ones sing, and they pick up the words, and
it perpetuates itself.
Yeah.
All right, so replace the bad
with the good. So if you see anything that just you don't want in your home, if it's a bad movie, throw it away. Your neighbor doesn't even need a scary movie. Just burn it. Get rid of it.
That's right. What do you mean, your neighbor?
Well, don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Yeah.
Don't give it to a thrift store. Don't take it to a second. I thought
you meant go get theirs and burn them.
No. Don't give it to your neighbor. Just get rid of it. Destroy it.
Right.
I mean, it's garbage.
Yeah. I've thought that too. It's like, oh, we'll just take these to the thrift store, and then I'm like, well, that just means someone else is going to be
yes,
misled or
yep,
misguided,
yeah,
and
we don't
that
want to do
makes me
that.
contribute. It's like distribution,
It feels like that
right?
for sure. I don't want to be a part of
That's funny.
causing anybody to sin or stumble
Right.
because of
Oh,
me.
wow, how far I've come in that area. Just
It's
that
true.
was not a struggle for you, but getting rid of just, and I thought they were decent movies and
Yeah,
videos and stuff,
yeah.
and then I just, yeah,
And
as
I
you,
think it looks different for everybody. I don't think we're here to say, oh, that's good and that's bad. I think you and your husband need to decide what your home wants, what you want your home to look like in 20 years. What kind of character do you want to bring out of that? And if it's not going to glorify the Lord, that's the first thing I think of. And if it's not going to build their character, you really need to get rid of it.
yeah,
Um, so those are the two
yeah,
things I look at. And without telling, you need to do this or you need to
right,
do that or this is good and this is bad. I think you just need to decide for every home. It looks different.
right.
I don't think you need to
I
compare
think,
or
and I think
copy.
you really have to listen to your conscience,
Yeah,
because if there's a conflict in your conscience, say, hey, I wonder if I should be doing this. That might be something to look at and see, because, like for me, it was just like, this is what I grew up with, so this is acceptable.
right,
And then when I started really thinking about it, I'm like, no, that's probably isn't.
right.
It probably isn't
And that took
acceptable.
you to have kids.
It
I
did.
think you were
It
really
did.
questioning, should my kids be even viewing this?
Yeah, and when they start acting like that, and you're like, is that the character I want them to
Right.
see? And then
So it's been
then who do you blame? You can't blame
a
them. It's
slow
like you
weaning
start,
process for
yeah,
you.
exactly.
For me, no
Yeah.
problem at all. So
No.
that was even a process for us to kind of come, align ourselves with on
So
that
kind of purging your home from,
immediately.
yeah.
Don't do it slow.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to do it slow. I don't think so. Anyway,
Okay. All right. So from my perspective, as a guy representing the male population, the first form of protection I think of is like weaponry. Like, how do you protect your home from, of course, that's what you always think, as a guy, you're thinking protect your home. You're like, oh, I need to get this kind of gun. I need to get this kind. I have a ball bat underneath the bed. I need to have all of these different things in my home, and you do. But the likelihood of that happening versus the likelihood of filth coming into your house and your kids being exposed to something that you really um, don't want them to be exposed to is more likely. That's really where your battle is going to be. So not that you don't need that kind of protection, but you do need to make sure your doors lock. You need to make sure that you have an adequate way to protect yourself and to protect your family, and have systems in place to where your kids know how to protect themselves, or to,
yeah. The reality is the other one probably outweighs the physical.
right.
And so, because things come into your home, even like sometimes bags of, clothes will come into our home from friends or friends of friends. And you're just like, who wore this? Like, I don't think I would ever put my 3-year-old in this outfit
Right.
because it's like really revealing. And so you have to even weed things out like that. And not that they gave us the bag of clothes for that
That
intended
someone might have given it to
purpose.
them.
Right. And they just, a friend of a
It didn't
friend
meet their
just passed.
standards, so
Right.
they just passed it on.
Right. Just thinking Natalie was, she'll take it. Right.
Yeah.
But no, I think that very much probably is more of a reality that even the mailbox, those things that come in your house, you've almost got to pay attention to. I think you go to the mailbox and you go through it real quick and you trash.
Just
It doesn't even make it to our door.
no.
So, those physical, like, I feel like they're kind of invading.
Yeah.
And so if you don't, right from the get go, take care of that, it gets into your house and
Sure.
you're like, how did that happen?
And that's more, like I said, that's more likely than you having an intruder or
Right.
something like that. But
To me,
but
that is an
still,
intruder.
but yeah, it is. Um, but I think we as guys, we kind of like to, I don't know, maybe just kind of relish in the opportunity to protect our home. I think there's something within us that want to protect it, and it's a good excuse to maybe buy a new rifle or something. And that
Shotgun,
can be an
new
idol too for
pistol.
men too.
Oh, for
They can
sure.
become so focused on that they're not watching the other things that happen in their
Yeah.
home, and they've got this all secured down like overboard, but they don't put enough, maybe they don't put as much effort into guarding other areas of the home and keeping it
Yeah,
protected.
for sure.
So, and I did have on my list, I'll just go ahead and hit it. The second one for me was filth. And when I say that, it's more like mail, just the physical stuff, the mail, the magazines, and now we have, we have digital stuff, and we have screen issues and those sorts of things. That's a whole nother topic of how do you
Right.
safeguard against that. But
Right.
clearly that is a major channel for
Any home.
any kind of invasion.
Yeah.
That's right.
Every
I mean, we
home
don't
deals
even,
with it.
that, like I said, that might be a whole nother podcast,
Yeah.
but
Those are things that we never even had to deal with. Or, I mean, our parents didn't have to deal with that when we were kids. And so this is definitely a new territory that we're walking through in this generation. So,
absolutely. Yeah. All right. Do you have another, what's your next one?
yeah. Pray over your home, pray for peace, pray for protection, pray for your husband, pray for your children. So I think prayer is important to safeguard. You know, God will honor that.
So you're talking like spiritual. I think I had
Yeah.
written down spiritual protection,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
some of the things we just talked about can become idols, or they can be, um, they can come into your home and they can cause you to have stumble, obviously, in spiritual areas. And I think the enemy loves to use those as a means to do
Oh,
it.
for sure.
But being able to pray for your kids, being able to pray, and
Just for discernment, even.
yeah, pray for wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
um, Praying for your children's spouses, the parents of your children's spouses. I mean, there's so many
Yeah,
different
that's a
areas that,
heritage protection too, you know,
yeah,
your grandchildren. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good one.
So the other way that thing that I have on mine is what we call rules, right? House rules. Um, for example, horseplay. That's something that we just don't allow in our house. I will wrestle with the kids, especially the boys. I'll wrestle with the girls, but there's rules even when we wrestle. There's no punching in the face. There's some basic rules when you wrestle, because someone could get hurt, and those rules are set up to maintain the safety of your home. You know, um, and we also have a list of rules. We have them on our website, rules that our family has, and I'm of the opinion that they need to be posted every now and then. You don't have to plaster them all over your house, but I do think that
Yeah.
they need to be written down, because it's a good reminder for the little ones. I mean, we're in the business of training,
Well,
right?
like an example, and we got this from a friend, and we went into her bathroom, and behind the toilet there was just like a little list of like 5 rules. You know, you close the door behind you when you go to the restroom. Only one person in the restroom at a time. You know, just little things. There were a lot of people in and out her home, and so it wasn't just for her children, but it was also for other people's children to follow
Yeah,
the exact same rules, so everybody was safe. And I thought that was a really good idea, and I thought we need to bring that into our home.
yeah. And so we came up with, we call it 432
Yep.
is what we call it, and that's straight from Ephesians. Um, and so
Be kind one
one
to
to
another.
another,
Yeah.
tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, has forgiven you. And so we use those because it just helps us to helps our kids to focus on the impact that we have
Yeah.
on each other.
It's really more accountability, I
Mm-hmm.
think, rather than,
Yeah,
I don't like to say rules, because sometimes rules are not hard and fast. They're for each other to hold us accountable as a
right,
reminder of what we should do. And sometimes it's just the right thing to do,
right.
not necessarily like a hard fast rule.
Yeah.
So I kind of like
Lest
that.
we be deceived by our own sinfulness, right?
Right.
And so we need each other, and that's kind of how that's framed. It is more of accountability,
Yeah.
but it also just spells it out for them. And I
Oh,
think
for sure.
you're gonna, you sometimes people don't like to see rules. I don't know why, but some people don't like rules. They feel like, well, it's maybe legalistic to have rules, but the that has nothing to do with my salvation. I'm not setting up a rule to close the bathroom because I think I'm going to, it's going to be, my salvation is dependent upon it. I'm setting it up for safety, and I'm setting it up so that my children understand that. And as a counselor of different families across the country and doing this over 30 years, there are people, and this is so sad to say, there are so many people that have come to me and come to us wishing they had already posted those rules in their own home.
Which is partly why I wrote all of them down, because we don't have all of them posted, but we do go over them a lot. And it's more so because my kids need to understand boundaries that they need to have in place in their life because of other people, not necessarily from a sister or brother, although those are helpful too. But, people do come in and out of our home, and we just want to make sure everybody's safe. And so closing a bathroom door behind you is just habitual, and it's a good idea, even if you're 2 years old and trying to potty train. What if someone was here and that child was just really super comfortable with just leaving the door open and saying, "Come help me," it's not appropriate to do that when there's someone here, but they forget. And so if that just becomes habitual for them, it's just a good, something that you've put into play in your home. And then when we go to someone else's house, he's already in that habit of doing it. Yeah. So that keeps him safe as well.
Right. So rules I think are really good to provide that.
Sure. Both.
And even rules that go back to the protection stuff. If we have if someone comes in through the door, make sure you lock it. If you're going out to go get wood for the fire, make sure, and it's late at night, you lock the door, pull the shades. Those are basic rules too. But I was initially thinking just rules to protect the people inside the house and know what, because there is so much safety in rules. So
I think so.
What was your next one?
My next one was be careful who you allow in your home. I think it's important that, especially families that their kids don't go to school and get exposure to their same age group peers. I think it's important to have like-minded friends who are all on the same page. Like our friends will have the same kind of rules, similar accountability, the buddy system. Siblings go with siblings if they're going to go down over the hill and play on the swing, or to the treehouse or something. Like our kids know that we do big and little together, so everybody's safe, and there's safety in numbers. Right. So over the years, I've learned a lot of different things that we can implement that it's just made me feel really good about having a crowd of people over, and then I don't panic like, where's my 3-year-old? Oh, okay, I know that she's with the 16-year-old sister, and we're good, and everybody's safe and accounted for. Right. Because we do have a pond, and we have a large tree house, and everybody needs to kind of be in earshot of each other and where we can see. And also, aside from friends, who you're bringing into your home really does matter. We like having people over after church. Our kids can learn a lot. We love having missionaries over. Right. We like sharing meals with people who have trailblazed before us. I don't always think that it needs to be the same age group. I think that, you and I both would love to entertain missionaries that have been overseas. And our kids are all ears when these stories come out on our table. So those kinds of influences are really important to me that they're exposed to. And I think they learn a lot, and they're very grateful for even the country they live in and the home that they're raised in, because, they realize not every home looks like that, especially overseas. So when they hear these stories, it really resonates how the world really does need Jesus. And so it gives them a different perspective too on just growing up and what their purpose is. And it's just not to, nothing. And it's also not to just have fun. but it gives them a greater sense of purpose of serving other people.
Right.
And
They
so,
get a chance to see that, and they only do that whenever someone is available to show that to
yeah,
them.
yeah. And I think just having those kind of opportunities to come in your home is just, it's just a lot of fun for me to watch my kids enjoy that.
So I have a question. I'll
Yeah.
put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
What happens, when you talk about outreach and people talk about ministering to the homeless, and people talk about bringing people into your home that you typically wouldn't do that.
Hmm.
What do you say to
Well,
that?
well, we've talked about this a lot because you and I, we heard a sermon and we both thought it was fantastic. He was a preacher's kid, and he said his dad did a wonderful job bringing in single moms and just really loving on them and finding needs in his church. And he always had someone at his table.
They did street preaching.
Yes, they did a lot. And I think they had 8 kids, and he was the oldest. And so he was telling all these stories. And
How about the
I,
faithfulness of his dad, and
yeah,
talking
the
about
legacy.
seeing firsthand his dad taking in people
Yeah,
and having dinner with these
all different
all varieties
kinds.
of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all walks of life. And I just remember thinking, that's just what a legacy, what a godly man.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could, I would have stood up and like clapped. It was so wonderful. I was just so moved. And I turned to you, and you were sitting by a pastor friend of ours. And I turned to you and I said, that was so good. I am so glad we listened to this. And I think you might have said something to him about it was good, or he maybe overheard me. I don't know. But he turned to us, and this is a pastor who we really respect, and he is by nature an exhorter. And he
He
just
has a large family too.
has a really large family. And his countenance went concerned and sad. And it was really confusing to me because I thought, well, he's such a happy, upbeat guy. I'm like, what did I say that was, maybe wrong or concerning? And he said, let me tell you a story. And I was like, uh-oh. So I didn't know if it was something about the sermon or his
Right.
life, or I didn't know where he was going with this, but that's all he said.
Mm.
And he kept going about, my wife was a preacher's kid, and her dad had several people in and out of their house her entire childhood. And I'm like, okay, I didn't even know she was a daughter of a preacher. And his wife was always in the kitchen serving, and she'd come back in and serve more, and then she'd go back and do dishes, and then she'd come back. All the while, this dad was ministering to single moms, he was ministering to homeless or whoever. But in the midst of all of that, I don't know what age she was, but she ended up being um, manipulated in a heinous way, and you can imagine, and taken advantage of. And it changed her life and how she viewed people for a very long time. And
Mm.
so he was telling us this really sad story about, just being careful about who
Who you
you
let in your
brought
home.
into your home, which was the exact opposite of this sermon. And here these two men are preachers. And I thought, this is like the opposite extreme opinions. So here, this one preacher had a wonderful experience.
Mm.
But this pastor's wife, this was her experience, and it ruined her life, she thought. But she has carried that with her, for her entire life. And she's not really, um, God's used it.
Mm.
She's very careful about who they bring in their home and safety measures. And they probably
Having an
have,
awareness
oh, yeah,
now.
that they never did before. So I think it's very helpful to know both sides. And so you can make a very good decision for the home
For
that
your
you want.
family.
Yeah. Because nobody wants their child to be taken advantage of at the cost of you ministering to someone.
Right.
And you're distracted. And he also told us another story about, dad ended up having like an emotional affair with one of the women he was ministering to, because his wife was always serving and doing dishes and she was behind the scenes. And so it was like complete opposite of what I thought he was going to say. So I took it as a warning, and
But there
it's
has
very
to be
helpful.
balance in that, about how you
Sure.
do that. And I think that's really the thing that we see through ministering to families, is that there is no formula.
No.
And that's something that that comes up all the time, and
Sure.
people have a tendency to say, oh, well, this is what worked for you, then I'm going to make this work for my
Yeah.
family.
No, I think
And
that's
it
dangerous.
is very dangerous.
But we have used those things and implemented them into our home. Like, we remodeled, excuse me, we have remodeled our home based on how we minister. So our entire family room is blocked off only by a French door
Mm-hmm.
that we can see through with windows. And so the kids are always in earshot of counseling with mom and dad while their kids are in the other room. And so everybody's accounted for, everybody can be seen, everybody can be heard. But yet there's a little bit of privacy for those parents with us. And so the top floor is for company, and where the kids' bedrooms are is off limits. There's just a certain part of the house that is not accessible to company. And so we kind of set our home up for the safety reasons,
Right.
according to the things that we know today.
Yeah.
And we hear a lot of terrible stories.
And I know that, and it might sound like, it might sound rigid. It might, to someone, it might sound rigid. It might sound harsh to say you can't go into that room.
Yeah.
But
It's
I'm
not
just
worth it.
telling you that the consequence of there not being a boundary there is way worse, and you will regret that you didn't have those
Forever.
things in place.
And we hear
Absolutely.
those. I mean, we hear them
We
all
do.
the time at
I've
our,
never heard anybody come and say, wow, I really wished I wouldn't have, I wish I would have just allowed more people to just traipse through my house, and
or them to go in their
yeah,
bedroom and have fun, or, whatever it
to
is.
isolate or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
It's just really not worth it in the end, because the stories that we hear are just so sad. And I think most of them could have been prevented if there were some safety measures up front in the home.
Well, so much of this is fighting for your family,
Oh, it
right?
is.
Fighting to preserve your family. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of why we chose this topic to begin with, is this, it's so important to be able to fight and to protect your family.
Yeah. And your
Because
kids.
your family is under attack.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can
If you're
guarantee
if
you,
you're a believer.
if you're a believer,
Yeah.
your family is under attack. And so God gives us opportunities and wisdom to know how to defend these things and to fight them off. But we also have to be aware that they're out
Yeah.
there, and you can't be too proactive in that area.
Yeah. There's a balance, with being overprotective, and your
Sure.
kids, fall down
Sure.
and you're
That's not the
just,
goal. I mean, the goal is not to keep your kids from ever, doing things on their own. The goal is to slowly, parent with an open hand, and to
yeah.
teach and train, and so that they are completely, don't need you at some point, right?
Yeah.
They're replicating, and I would go as far as to say that it's not just that's not just the goal. The goal is to teach them to teach,
Yeah.
because if they just absorb it, and we see that a lot
Yeah.
too. We'll see some second generation
Yeah.
Christian families who they just absorb everything that their parents have given them, and the sacrifice that they've done,
And they don't pass it
and
on.
they don't have the same drive to pass it on.
Yeah.
And that's part of the training for children, is teaching them to teach.
Yeah. Well, children really have to understand boundaries, and not everybody you see is a friend, even at church,
Yeah.
And I think after 2020, that awareness was heightened. And before then, I don't know if it was ever really talked about a lot in the media, in the news, or whatever, but it really escalated after that. I really noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other day, I just read the Sly Fox and the Chicks to the kids, and it just reminded me again to reiterate what we always talk about. Not
Right.
everybody is your friend. And just because they come up to you and talk to you doesn't mean they have a good intention. And so you have to be very careful in how you present that to a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, because you don't want to scare them and think everybody is the boogeyman.
Right.
I don't think there's a balance in that. But they needed to know at a young age that they just stay close to mom. They don't go wandering off to the bathroom by
You teach them
themselves.
discernment. I mean, you have to teach
Yeah.
them how to spot those dangers,
Yeah.
and that danger doesn't mean the boogeyman. I mean, it can be
No, it's mommy. He wanted me to go with him down
right,
the
or I
hallway.
mean, it can be things you get in
Yeah.
the mail. I mean, it can
Yeah.
be all kinds of stuff.
Well, one of the things that we teach our kids is just as an example, so we can move on. But I think this is important to say is if someone tells you, they don't tell your mom and dad. I say the first thing you do is you run and tell mom and dad.
Absolutely.
And I learned that from a really good friend who's very wise. And I think she probably experienced that a time or two, is where she learned that one. And we've got to help people pass that information on because it was passed on to me. I thought that was great advice.
Right.
Um,
It's the one of the first signs that you're headed down a dangerous
yeah.
path.
Yeah, there's some deception there. And so
Right.
no one should ever tell your child, don't tell mom and dad. That is a red flag and they need to know that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll end with that.
We'll we'll come back to that one at a different time because
Yeah.
there's so much there when
Yeah.
we talk about the family being under attack.
Yeah, we can
So
go down that rabbit hole.
we're trying
another
to
day.
be more positive
Sorry.
and proactive. Well, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to be positive when you're talking about depravity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When you're seeing the
Well, and
evil
your
that
babies are important. You don't want them to be manipulated in
right,
any way. So
right. Okay, so I think the last one that I have. I mean, we've kind of covered on both yours and mine that we've over a lot of overlap, but
yeah.
the last one that I had was emotional protection.
I said emotional safety.
Did
That
you?
was my last one.
Okay.
Good
Do you want to
job.
talk about that
No,
first?
you
You
go
want me
ahead.
to?
I just talked a lot.
So, to me, I think this is crucial to maintaining protection in your home. I mean, if your kids and your wife don't feel like they have a place where they can express themselves, they can talk about things, that they're going to be ridiculed or made fun of. I think that's really can create a lot of problems later on in their life and even in a child's life. Just being able to be an emotionally safe place to land. And I'm not talking about, I know that that's a stretch a lot for us guys sometimes, but I think really what it is just recognizing that your daughters and your wife are constructed and made different and they think and process things different. Um,
For
you know,
sure. For
you know,
sure.
I mean, I have tons of examples, but the other day,
Oh my.
my little 6-year-old girl's like, "Daddy, would you draw me a flower?" And so I was like, "Okay, sure." I drew a flower, and I'd moved on to some other
Because they
projects.
want to color
Yeah,
it
they wanted
in.
to color
Yeah.
it. They would draw a flower because it was just easier to do that than get out a coloring sheet. And then I got busy doing something else, and my 4-year-old son came into my daughter, who she loves to draw, and she's like, would you draw me a dog?" And she said, "Sure, I'll draw you a dog." And he said, "Make it 2 dogs. Make them fighting with guns." It just got more and more. It wasn't a
Boy.
flower.
More and more,
Right.
more and more boy.
Right. And that's okay. That's right. It's okay that she just wants a flower. And
Yep.
it's okay that he wants a coloring sheet of 2 dogs
Puppies
fighting with
and
pistols.
guns. Pretty
So,
classic.
yeah. So, I mean, I think you have to be aware of that and recognize that and giving your family opportunities and space to be emotionally safe. And I don't think that means you have to coddle them. I don't think that means you have to, every point they make is a valid point, because it's not. They're children, and foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. But what a great opportunity to ask him a question, right?
I'll give you an example just
Sure.
because I'm a girl. I didn't realize how important this was until we had daughters. And and I saw how gentle of a dad you were, and I realized how vital and how important that was to them, because it was important to me. I just didn't know how important it was until I saw them respond to you, and they just like crawl in you, like, because they just feel so safe around you. And I think um, it's because you don't raise your voice. You do not yell. You're not a dad who's angry. You have a lot of self control. And I think it speaks volumes to kids. Like, anytime I've ever seen you even like a hint of raising your voice, everybody's like, that's weird. They just, even the boys are just like, that's really strange that he, maybe he had a bad day or something. I mean, it's just so odd, um, which is just really great because just coming from the background I do, I mean, I had one grandfather that was a yeller and he cussed a lot. I loved him, but he kind of was scary.
You can get compliance doing that,
Yeah, and
right?
I
You can get obedience, but it's
yeah,
more like forced compliance.
right, and my dad was also very angry, and so I don't think I realized how scary that was until I watched you interact with our kids, especially our girls. And I thought, that's it. That is why children and people feel safe, is that you're not volatile. You're a safe person to kind of land on. And you can emotionally give your heart to someone so much easier when they give you that trust and the consistency. I don't know. I just
Well, to me, the whole goal is to how can you have a continual voice in their life?
right.
And if you're yelling or you're a threat to them, you're not going to have that voice. You're going to
No.
lose that voice. So
Eventually,
it's
you'll
really,
have the compliance
yeah,
for a while.
you will, but you won't have their heart. And
No.
so to me, it's so, just if you're going to parent and you're really trying to reach their heart and you're trying to teach and train, um, it doesn't do any good if they don't hear you.
Right.
And so you still have to maintain at least one aspect of it. I can ask them hard questions, right? And I can confront them with some really difficult choices that they've made, but I don't have to yell to do it,
No.
But
No.
and I think that's more impactful because they see that you're standing with them
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder and fighting the same fight with them.
Well, I can tell you it's more impactful because just knowing from, my experience and then their experience watching them with you, it's like night and day. I mean, they respond to you and they naturally just are so drawn to a safe person. And so, hands down, kids in general, emotional safety, but especially girls, they just get so broken when they see their dad be just, like, how could you,
Right.
do this to your brother or whatever.
Yeah.
They just, they break so
Yeah.
easily.
Well, and I don't think you can overlook the fact that those same words can be very destructive to a boy,
Oh, sure.
especially if they have a love language of words of
Yeah.
affirmation, or you're saying things that cause them to be disrespected.
Yeah.
Even at 2 or 3 years old, you can disrespect a boy,
Yeah.
and you can really solidify in his heart where
Mm-hmm.
you stand and where he's
Right.
going to keep you. So it's not just with the girls; it's
Yeah.
definitely with the boys. No, it's a different approach, and
Yeah.
you're thinking more about the words that you
Mm-hmm.
use. Hey, I know you want to be a man of integrity, and what you just did is not showing
Acceptable.
it's not acceptable, and that's not helping you get there.
Right.
And so you
It
can,
gives him a purpose too when you rephrase it like that. And you're
right,
like, oh, I totally messed up.
yeah. But again, the emotional safety to me is crucial for my
Right.
home.
Right.
Um,
No, you do a good job. I'm very thankful.
well, I can. It doesn't come easy.
Well, you make it
I know
look
you
easy.
believe it does. It doesn't though. It takes a lot of prayer.
Self control.
Yeah, self-control, and then in my head I'm thinking something totally different,
Mm.
right? I'm trying to process that, and I'm responding how I can remember being responded to, and how I see other people respond, and I'm like,
Well, you
you know
also are good about seeing the outcome. Like, if I
mm,
want this outcome, I need to be soft. I need to speak with kindness and gentleness because he's not going to hear me if I'm not. So it's
Well,
wise.
and there's sometimes you just kind of like, okay, someday this is going to be funny. It ain't today. But someday this is
Yeah.
going to be a funny
Yeah.
situation, what the child did and
Yeah.
how.
Well, we won't call anybody out. Can I call you out?
I don't.
Well,
I'm an open book.
you'll have to. Are you?
Sure.
You don't even know what I'm going to
It's
say.
all
Okay.
right.
So this is what makes a podcast kind of fun.
Okay.
If you're going to
Oh,
put
so you can exploit me?
no, just put you on the
I
spot.
might not ask you.
No, I'm not going to exploit you. I would never do that. It's just an example because I don't want to call out any of my kids or whatever. But I don't know if we were dating or we were married. But I think we were just married, like back from our honeymoon, maybe. And I don't know if I went to the store. I don't know what happened, but I drove in the driveway. And you're going to smile because you know where I'm going with this. No?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, you were at the back of the house, and our driveway it pulled up right next to the side of the house where you walk into the kitchen.
Yeah.
In the side door. And I got out of the car, and you scared me.
Yeah.
Like, boo!
That was the one and only time.
The one and only time, because there is a reason why it was only once. But I don't like to be scared. I thought you were like there to rob me. I mean, I didn't know who you were.
I didn't understand your background. I don't think we had been around each other enough to know that could be like
an issue.
An issue. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah, it was an issue for sure. And so I'll call myself out. I took the keys and I just threw them as hard as I could, and I hit you with the keys. Well, you were probably 10 or 15 feet from me.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a weapon. So I'm like, hey, throw the keys at him.
Throw the keys at, yeah.
So safety, right? Physical safety wasn't there. And then emotional safety came after that.
And I learned not to do that. Right. And I do know people that, you see sometimes, you see it portrayed online. People will know that it upsets their wife or their husband, and yet they'll still do it. And they keep doing it and they keep doing it. And it's so funny online, and it's really not. I mean, it can really destroy your home.
Well,
and
it
destroys that trust.
Yeah.
That's right. And so you kind of have to learn. I mean, you're not going to always not be.
Well, not everybody is like me. Right? There are some girls that might think it's funny. Right. Me in particular, I do not.
Do you ever think it's fun to tease, though?
No.
I mean, they might act like it's fun to begin with, but
no.
Do you think that it's
on,
really, that's what people prefer? I want to be teased by this person.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Like, give me an example.
Oh, well, just calling someone like a little pet name or something that maybe is a little negative, or
no.
She's always like that, or he's he's just in his juvenile state or something like that.
No,
I mean, that's teasing, right? But you're really defining a person.
Yeah, in a negative light, sure. Right. No, I don't think that's appropriate.
Yeah. I think in the long term it can do a lot of damage.
I think so. I mean, that's not a safe person to me. Is that who wants to be around that? So, I mean, emotional safety, I think, has a lot of categories and what that looks like. So,
yeah. Well, we could probably talk about that a lot more, but
Yeah.
I think this pretty much covers the topic of protecting your home. So it goes beyond just owning a shotgun, and it also is more than just putting up some rules in your house. So it's a all comprehensive aspect of parenting children that you have to have if you want your home to be as functioning as possible. And
definitely have to talk a lot about it and be on the same page, because I don't think it works well if you don't communicate about what that looks like.
And as you know, communication, as we've learned, communication also involves listening and paying attention to your flock, is what we say.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I did want to add, when it talks about ministering to other people and opening up your home, one of the things that we've said to people that I think has been helpful to a lot of them is when you can just see their shoulders drop down when you say it, is you say, it's not your season. Right? There is a time when you can do this, and you can go street preach, and you can bring the homeless into your home,
Yeah.
But this might not be the season for that.
Being married to your ministry is dangerous when you have a family.
Yeah.
Because your family does come before that.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And they can come alongside you.
Well, ministry is not God. And your relationship with God comes first.
Absolutely.
And your family is next. Well, obviously your husband and then your children. But your ministry comes after that, because ministry is not God. Ministry is a job. Right. It's a service. But it's not your relationship with the Lord. And so it is a separate thing. And if you put that before your husband or your wife and children, we've just seen it.
Well, and another short little plug for families is that, I mean, we really do believe that you're going to be more impactful with the kids in your home, the children in your home, and in your local community than you ever will be going out and being missionaries. And it's not to say that you can't evangelize and mission in the mission field, but you don't have that kind of access to people. You don't hold them, the people you minister to, you don't hold them from infant to 18.
Not unless you live with them.
Right.
We have friends who live in Africa.
Sure.
But they've lived there for 10
years. But even then, you still don't have the access to those people that you would your own family.
Right.
And what better opportunity when you have a family to disciple and to expand the kingdom of God right in your own home. This is why family is so crucial to God.
We also had that spoken into our lives a long time ago from the same pastor. He said, you're going to, I don't know if we had like 7 kids at the time or 8, I don't remember, but he was looking at everybody and he's like, you're going to be more impactful, ministering to your family than you ever would for a 3-week missionary trip.
Yeah.
And we were like, thank you.
That's right.
Thank you for just reiterating, speaking into our life, giving us direction. It was just, reiterating what we thought we knew, but that's that encouraging the brethren.
Yeah.
It's
and that doesn't mean that the missionary is not important, but you're going to be more effective.
Yeah,
just with your own family.
Yeah, there's a season and a time for everything. But if you have little children, it's definitely your season to be more at home.
And that's
training.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah, it is.
What a beautiful time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me, honey.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me one more time.
Yeah. So, will we do this again then? You're agreeing to do it again?
Sure. I don't know. Maybe you should ask them if they want me to do it again.
Yeah, I think they would probably say yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll close that out then. Thank you.